I need you to understand something that will change the way you breathe for the rest of your life. Right now, as you read these words, there is a divine force older than the pyramids, wiser than the oceans, and more powerful than any obstacle you've ever faced. And this force is waiting to remove every single barrier between you and the sweetness you were born to taste. I'm talking about Ganesha, the elephant-headed deity who stands at the threshold of all beginnings, the remover of obstacles, the guardian of prosperity, and the keeper of the golden gates that lead to a life so abundant it will make your current reality look like a faded photograph. This isn't about religion or blind faith or repeating empty words into the void. This is about activating an ancient frequency that has pulled seekers out of the quicksand of lack for thousands of years. A frequency that turns struggle into flow, resistance into receptivity, and scarcity into the kind of overflow that makes you weep with gratitude. You're here because some part of your soul remembers what it feels like to live in alignment with divine supply, to wake up knowing that the universe is conspiring in your favor, to taste the honey of success on your tongue before you've even left your bed. The world has taught you to claw and scrape and fight for every crumb, to believe that prosperity is reserved for the lucky few, the genetically blessed, the ones born into the right families or the right zip codes. But Ganesha's wisdom shatters that lie with the weight of his elephant trunk. He teaches that sweetness is your birthright, that the golden rain falls equally on all who open their hands to receive it, that the only thing standing between you and the life of your dreams is the concrete you've poured around your own heart. I've walked with people who were drowning in debt, suffocating under the weight of bills they couldn't pay, waking up at 3 a.m. with their chests tight and their minds screaming. And I've watched them transform into living magnets for wealth and opportunity after they learned to pray with Ganesha's energy. Not because they said the right words or performed the perfect ritual, but because they finally understood that prosperity isn't something you chase. It's something you become. It's a frequency you tune into, a vibration you embody, a sacred alignment between your inner world and the infinite abundance of the cosmos. What I'm about to share with you isn't theory pulled from dusty books or intellectual concepts designed to make me sound wise. This is the result of years spent studying the ancient Vedic texts, working with spiritual teachers who carry Ganesha's lineage in their bones, and personally experiencing the kind of transformation that happens when you stop begging the universe for scraps and start claiming your seat at the table of kings. You're going to learn why Ganesha is always depicted holding a modak, a sweet dumpling that represents the nectar of spiritual realization and material abundance combined into one delicious truth. You're going to discover how to break through the invisible barriers that have kept financial resources just out of reach, how to dissolve the energetic blockages that make you feel like you're running on a treadmill that never stops but never goes anywhere. And most importantly, you're going to activate a part of yourself that has been asleep for so long you forgot it existed. The part that knows how to receive without guilt, how to prosper without apology, how to live in a state of perpetual sweetness where joy isn't a destination but the very air you breathe. Before we go deeper, I want you to feel something right now. Close your eyes for just a moment and imagine what your life would look like if every obstacle dissolved like sugar in hot water. Imagine waking up tomorrow and feeling, not hoping, but feeling in your bones that divine supply is flooding toward you from every direction. Imagine tasting that sweetness, not as a fantasy, but as your new normal, your everyday reality, the baseline of your existence. That shiver running down your spine right now, that warmth spreading through your chest, that's not hope. That's recognition. Your soul remembers this feeling because it's been waiting for you to come home to it. Ganesha doesn't create prosperity out of thin air. He removes the walls you've built that keep it out, and once those walls crumble, the flood begins. Are you ready to let the sweetness in? Are you ready to stop living like a beggar in a universe of infinite wealth? Then stay with me, because what comes next will dismantle every false belief you've been carrying about what you deserve and why you've been denied it for so long. There's a reason Ganesha has the head of an elephant and the body of a human, and it's not some random mythological quirk designed to make ancient stories more colorful. The elephant represents memory, wisdom, and unstoppable force, the kind of power that can uproot trees and forge paths through jungles where no path existed before. When you invoke Ganesha, you're not calling on a distant deity who might or might not hear your prayers depending on his mood. You're activating the part of yourself that remembers your sovereign nature, the part that knows you didn't come to this planet to struggle and suffer and die with your music still inside you. Ganesha stands at the entrance of every new beginning, every fresh start, every quantum leap you're about to take, and his only job is to clear the road ahead so that your journey toward prosperity becomes inevitable rather than impossible. I've seen people spend decades trying to manifest wealth through affirmations and vision boards and positive thinking, and they wonder why nothing changes, why the cash flow remains a trickle instead of a river, why opportunities knock on every door except theirs. The answer is devastatingly simple. They're trying to build a mansion on a foundation of obstacles they refuse to acknowledge. Ganesha teaches that before you can receive the golden rain, you must first identify and remove the barriers. And these barriers aren't always external. Sometimes they're the stories you inherited from parents who believed that struggle equals virtue, that suffering builds character, that people like you don't get to live in overflow. Sometimes they're the wounds from past failures, the scars from business deals that fell apart, the shame from asking for help and being rejected, the humiliation of watching others succeed while you stayed stuck. Ganesha's trunk doesn't gently nudge these obstacles aside. It obliterates them with the force of divine will, and when those walls come down, you'll feel it physically in your body. Your breathing will deepen, your shoulders will drop, your jaw will unclench, and suddenly you'll notice opportunities that were always there but invisible to eyes clouded by lack consciousness. This is what I mean when I talk about Ganesha as the guardian of golden gates. He doesn't create new doors, he reveals the ones that were hidden behind the rubble of your conditioning. Let me take you into the heart of Ganesha's true power, because most people get this completely wrong. They think of him as a good luck charm, a spiritual rabbit's foot you invoke when you need a parking spot or a job interview to go well. And while he absolutely helps with those things, his real gift is so much deeper, it'll make your head spin. Ganesha dismantles the architecture of impossibility that you've been living inside without even realizing it. He shows you that the reason divine supply hasn't flooded your bank account isn't because you're unworthy or unlucky or cursed. It's because you've been unconsciously reinforcing the very patterns that keep abundance at arm's length. Every time you say, "I can't afford that," you're pouring concrete. Every time you look at wealthy people with resentment instead of inspiration, you're building another wall. Every time you receive a compliment or a gift and immediately deflect it because you don't feel deserving, you're slamming the golden gates shut with your own hands. Ganesha's wisdom cuts through this self-sabotage like a hot blade through butter. And when you truly align with his frequency, you'll start noticing how often you've been your own biggest obstacle. Here's where it gets visceral, where the knowledge moves from your head into your cells and starts rewiring your entire nervous system. Ganesha is depicted with a large belly, and that belly isn't a sign of gluttony or excess. It represents his ability to digest both the sweet and the bitter, to consume every experience without being destroyed by it, to transform poison into nectar through the alchemy of consciousness. When you pray to Ganesha for prosperity, you're not asking him to remove all challenges from your path. You're asking for the capacity to digest whatever comes without losing your center, without collapsing back into scarcity mindset, without abandoning your worthiness the moment something goes wrong. This is the secret the gurus don't tell you in their Instagram posts. True prosperity isn't about never facing obstacles. It's about having an elephant-sized capacity to move through them without being derailed. It's about developing a belly so strong that when financial setbacks happen, when deals fall through, when unexpected expenses arise, you don't spiral into panic and lack. You digest the experience, extract the lesson, and keep moving toward the sweetness that's waiting on the other side. I want you to feel into the energy of Ganesha's presence right now, not as an intellectual exercise, but as a somatic experience. Imagine standing before a massive gate made of solid gold, so tall you can't see the top, so wide it stretches beyond your peripheral vision. This gate represents everything you've ever wanted, every dream you've buried, every version of prosperity you've convinced yourself is reserved for other people. Now imagine Ganesha standing beside you, his elephant head radiating ancient wisdom, his trunk curling with playful power, his eyes seeing through every excuse and every limiting belief you've ever used to stay small. He doesn't judge you for the walls you've built. He understands that you built them to protect yourself from disappointment, from the pain of hoping and failing, from the vulnerability of wanting something so badly it hurts. But now he's here to show you that those walls have outlived their purpose, that what once protected you now imprisons you, and that the only way to taste the sweetness of true prosperity is to let him break through the concrete and swing those golden gates wide open. The most beautiful part of Ganesha's teaching is this: he doesn't require you to be perfect before he helps you. He doesn't demand that you meditate for hours, or renounce all worldly desires, or prove your spiritual worthiness through suffering. All he asks is that you acknowledge the obstacles, that you stop pretending they don't exist, and that you give him permission to remove them with the unstoppable force of divine love. When you do that, when you finally surrender the illusion of control and admit that you can't do this alone, something shifts in the fabric of reality itself. The universe recognizes your readiness. The frequency of abundance locks onto your signal, and the sweetness you've been chasing starts chasing you instead. This isn't magic. It's alignment. This isn't luck. It's the natural result of removing the barriers between you and the infinite ocean of divine supply that has always been waiting to flood your life. Ganesha is the remover of obstacles, yes, but more than that, he's the revealer of pathways, the opener of gates, the one who shows you that prosperity was never something you had to earn. It was something you had to remember how to receive. The ancient sages understood something that modern self-help gurus completely miss when they talk about manifesting wealth and attracting abundance into your reality. They knew that prosperity isn't just about having numbers grow in your bank account or acquiring possessions that make your neighbors jealous. It's about cultivating a relationship with sweetness itself, with the nectar that flows through all of creation when you're aligned with your highest purpose. Ganesha holds the Modak, that sacred sweet dumpling, not as a random prop but as a teaching tool, a reminder that the universe operates on the principle of divine pleasure rather than grinding sacrifice. Every spiritual tradition that's worth its salt will tell you the same truth in different languages. When you're on the right path, when you're living in accordance with cosmic law, life becomes sweet, not easy. Not free of challenges, not a constant vacation on a beach somewhere, but fundamentally sweet in a way that penetrates your bones and makes you grateful to wake up every morning. This sweetness is the signature of true prosperity, the unmistakable flavor of a life aligned with infinite supply, and it's available to you right now if you're willing to shift the frequency you've been broadcasting into the quantum field. Most people approach prosperity like they're preparing for war, teeth clenched, fists tight, ready to fight for every scrap and defend every gain against invisible enemies waiting to steal it away. They carry tension in their shoulders that never fully releases, stress in their bellies that churns even when they're supposedly relaxing, a baseline anxiety that whispers they're always one mistake away from losing everything. This is the opposite of the sacred sweetness protocol that Ganesha teaches, and it's exactly why so many people repel the very wealth they're desperately trying to attract. Think about it. When you're in a state of chronic tension, when your body is locked in fight or flight mode, when your nervous system is screaming danger at every turn, what kind of frequency are you broadcasting? You're telling the universe that life is a threat, that resources are scarce, that you need to armor yourself against the inevitable attack. And the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, responds by giving you exactly what you're asking for. More reasons to be tense, more threats to defend against, more scarcity to prove you were right all along. Ganesha's wisdom flips this entire paradigm on its head by teaching you to approach prosperity from a place of pleasure, playfulness, and trust in divine timing. Here's where the protocol becomes practical, where it moves from philosophy into action steps you can implement before the sun sets today. The Sacred Sweetness Protocol begins with a simple but profound question. What would it feel like if receiving abundance was as natural and effortless as breathing? Not someday in the future after you've worked harder or become more disciplined or fixed all your flaws, but right now, in this present moment, with all your imperfections and uncertainties still intact. When you ask this question with genuine curiosity rather than skeptical dismissal, something remarkable happens in your energy field. Your electromagnetic signature starts to shift from the frequency of lack, which is tight and contracted and desperate, to the frequency of sufficiency, which is open and relaxed and magnetizing. You begin to notice the sweetness that's already present in your life, but has been invisible to eyes trained to scan for problems and deficiencies. Maybe it's the way sunlight hits your coffee cup in the morning, or the unexpected compliment from a stranger, or the realization that you woke up in a warm bed with a roof over your head while millions of people didn't. These aren't consolation prizes for not having the wealth you desire. They're the foundation upon which massive prosperity is built, because the universe only gives you more of what you're already appreciating. I need you to understand something that most spiritual teachers are too afraid to say out loud because it sounds too simple, too good to be true, too much like bypassing the hard work that suffering-addicted cultures demand. The reason Ganesha is associated with sweetness isn't because he's some cosmic sugar daddy throwing candy at his favorites. It's because he represents the dissolution of resistance. And when resistance dissolves, sweetness is what remains. Think about the last time you experienced genuine joy, not manufactured positivity or forced gratitude, but real, bone-deep delight that made you forget to check your phone or worry about tomorrow. In that moment, you weren't trying to be abundant. You were abundance itself, and if someone had offered you all the gold in the world, it couldn't have made you feel richer than you already felt. That's the frequency Ganesha wants you to live from permanently, not as a rare peak experience, but as your baseline reality. And the pathway to that frequency is through removing the obstacles that convince you sweetness must be earned through suffering. Every time you choose pleasure over punishment, ease over struggle, trust over control, you're performing the sacred sweetness protocol, whether you realize it or not. Let me give you a visualization that will anchor this teaching into your cellular memory so deeply that your body starts craving alignment with prosperity the way it craves water when you're thirsty. Close your eyes and imagine that your entire life is a vast garden. And for years you've been so focused on the weeds, the dry patches, the areas where nothing seems to grow, that you haven't noticed the fruit trees heavy with ripe mangoes, the flowers blooming in impossible colors, the streams of fresh water running through the landscape. Ganesha walks into this garden with you, and instead of immediately attacking the weeds, like you've been doing for so long, he leads you to a mango tree and picks the ripest fruit, the one practically bursting with juice. and he hands it to you with a smile that crinkles the corners of his elephant eyes. "Taste this first," he says, "before you do anything else, before you plan or strategize or figure out how to fix everything that's wrong. Just taste the sweetness that's already here." Ike, and when you bite into that mango, when the juice runs down your chin and the flavor explodes on your tongue, you realize you've been starving yourself in a garden of abundance, convinced that you had to earn the right to enjoy the fruit through endless labor in the fields of lack. This is the pivot point where everything changes, where the sacred sweetness protocol stops being a concept and becomes a living practice that rewires your relationship with divine supply. You start orienting your life around what feels sweet rather than what feels hard. And I'm not talking about hedonism or avoiding responsibility or bypassing genuine challenges that require your attention. I'm talking about choosing the path that makes your soul sing instead of the path that makes your ego feel virtuous through suffering. I'm talking about asking yourself, before you say yes to another obligation or opportunity, does this feel sweet, or does this feel like another brick in the wall I'm building between myself and joy? Most people never ask this question because they've been programmed to believe that the sweet path is the selfish path, that if something feels good, it must be wrong, that real growth only happens through pain and discomfort and pushing yourself past your limits until you break. But Ganesha's teaching obliterates that lie with the simple truth that the universe operates on pleasure, that creation itself is an act of divine play, that the stars don't struggle to shine, and the flowers don't agonize over blooming, and the rivers don't suffer as they flow toward the ocean. There's a wall inside you that you can't see with your physical eyes, but you can feel with every fiber of your being. And this wall is made of concrete so thick that light can't penetrate it, so heavy that you've learned to carry its weight as if it's just part of who you are. This wall was built brick by brick over years and decades, constructed from every moment you were told that dreams don't pay bills, from every time you watched your parents fight about finances and vowed you'd never end up like them, while simultaneously absorbing their scarcity programming into your nervous system, from every failure and rejection and humiliation that whispered the same message: you're not the kind of person who gets to live in overflow. The cruelest part of this wall is that you built it yourself as a form of protection, a way to avoid the pain of hoping for something better and being disappointed when it doesn't arrive. But what started as a shield has become a prison. And now the very structure that was supposed to keep you safe from heartbreak is actually keeping you trapped in a life of limitation, where divine supply can see you but can't reach you because the concrete is too thick for anything sweet to penetrate. Ganesha's trunk isn't some gentle instrument that politely asks the wall if it might consider moving aside. It's a battering ram of divine force that shatters concrete the way lightning splits trees, sudden and total and irreversible. When you truly invoke his power, when you stop half-heartedly wishing things would change and start demanding that the barriers come down no matter how painful the demolition might feel, he doesn't hesitate. He goes straight for the foundation, the core beliefs that are holding the entire structure in place, and he destroys them with a precision that would terrify you if you didn't trust that what's on the other side of the rubble is everything you've been dying to experience. I've watched people go through this process, and it's not always comfortable. Sometimes breaking the concrete of lack looks like a financial crisis that forces you to finally confront your relationship with worthiness. Sometimes it looks like a relationship ending because your partner can't match the frequency you're ascending into. Sometimes it looks like your entire identity crumbling because you realize that who you thought you were was just a collection of defense mechanisms designed to keep you small and safe and acceptable to people who were never going to celebrate your success anyway. The concrete of lack has a specific composition that most people never examine because they're too busy trying to paint over it or ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist. It's made from 3 primary ingredients: And if you can identify these in your own life, you've already started the demolition process. The first ingredient is unworthiness. That voice in your head that says some version of who do you think you are to want that much, to dream that big, to expect that the universe would actually deliver abundance to someone like you. This voice sounds like it's trying to protect you from disappointment, but it's actually the warden of your prison, keeping you locked in the cell of mediocrity so you never have to risk the vulnerability of reaching for something extraordinary. The second ingredient is ancestral debt, the unconscious belief that you owe your lineage a certain amount of suffering because they suffered, that it would be a betrayal of your parents or grandparents to live better than they did, to have ease where they had struggle, to experience sweetness where they knew only bitterness. And the third ingredient is the most insidious, the addiction to struggle itself, the way you've learned to find identity and meaning in how hard everything is, how much you're juggling, how exhausted you are, because if life became easy, who would you even be? Here's what happens when Ganesha's trunk makes contact with that concrete wall, and I want you to pay close attention because this is where theory becomes transformation. The first crack appears not in your external circumstances, but in your internal narrative, in the stories you've been telling yourself about why prosperity isn't possible for you. You'll be going about your day, maybe washing dishes or sitting in traffic, and suddenly a thought will land in your consciousness with the weight of absolute truth. I don't actually have to struggle like this. Not as a hopeful wish or a positive affirmation you're trying to convince yourself of, but as a fact as obvious and undeniable as gravity or the color of the sky. This thought is the first crack, and once it appears, the wall can never be fully solid again. You'll start noticing all the ways you've been choosing difficulty over ease, complication over simplicity, the hard path over the sweet path, and instead of judging yourself for these choices, you'll feel a compassionate curiosity about why you made them. What were you trying to prove? Who were you trying to please? What pain were you trying to avoid by creating even more pain? The demolition accelerates when you start taking action from this new awareness. When you begin making choices that prioritize your alignment with sweetness over your addiction to struggle. This might look like saying no to opportunities that would bring in cash flow, but would drain your soul, trusting that something better is already on its way even though you can't see it yet. It might look like investing in yourself, in your education, or your health, or your environment, even when the practical voice in your head is screaming that you can't afford it, and you should wait until you have more resources. It might look like ending relationships or business partnerships that keep you locked in patterns of scarcity, even when walking away feels terrifying because you're not sure what will replace them. Every time you choose alignment over safety, every time you choose trust over control, every time you choose the sweet path over the familiar path, you're swinging Ganesha's trunk at the concrete, and piece by piece, the wall begins to crumble. You'll feel it in your body before you see it in your bank account. Your breath will get deeper, your sleep will get sweeter, your digestion will improve, your chronic pain will start to ease because you're no longer carrying the weight of a wall that was never meant to be permanent. The moment of breakthrough, when the concrete finally shatters completely, is unmistakable. You'll know it's happened not because your external life suddenly looks like an Instagram highlight reel, but because you feel fundamentally different in relationship to prosperity. Where there used to be grasping, there's now trust. Where there used to be anxiety about the future, there's now curiosity about what sweetness is coming. Where there used to be shame about wanting more, there's now unapologetic ownership of your desire to live in overflow. You'll start receiving opportunities, resources, connections, and synchronicities that would have been impossible when the wall was still standing. Not because the universe suddenly decided to bless you, but because you finally removed the barrier that was keeping the blessings out. This is Ganesha's greatest gift. He doesn't create abundance where there was none. He reveals the abundance that was always there, waiting on the other side of the concrete you built to keep yourself safe from disappointment. And once you taste that first drop of sweetness flowing freely into your life, without you having to manipulate or control or force anything, you'll never want to build walls again. There's a specific kind of hunger that has nothing to do with your stomach and everything to do with your soul. And this hunger is what drives people to achieve great success while still feeling empty inside, to accumulate wealth while remaining spiritually bankrupt, to check every box society told them to check while wondering why none of it brings the satisfaction they were promised. You know this hunger intimately because you've felt it in the quiet moments, in the space between accomplishments, when you realize that reaching the goal didn't fill the void the way you thought it would, that crossing the finish line just revealed another race you're expected to run. The Modak that Ganesha holds isn't meant to satisfy physical appetite. It's designed to feed this deeper hunger, the craving for meaning and purpose and connection to something greater than the endless pursuit of more. When you understand what the Modak really represents, when you learn to feed your soul before you feed your ambitions, everything about your relationship with prosperity transforms from exhausting to exhilarating, from draining to nourishing, from a hunger that can never be satisfied to a feast that never ends. Let me take you into the Modak Meditation, a practice so powerful that if you do it with genuine presence and openness, you'll never see abundance the same way again. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted, and I don't care if that's a meditation room with Tibetan singing bowls and incense, or a locked bathroom with the shower running to drown out the noise of your household. What matters is that you give yourself permission to fully arrive in this moment without splitting your attention between what you're doing and what you should be doing. Close your eyes and begin by taking 3 deep breaths, not the shallow sips of air you've been surviving on, but real breaths that fill your lungs completely and remind your nervous system that you're safe enough to relax. On the 3rd exhale, imagine that you're standing in a vast temple carved from rose quartz, and the walls are glowing with a soft pink light that feels like love made visible. In the center of this temple sits Ganesha, and he's enormous, maybe 20 feet tall, radiating a presence so calm and grounded that just being near him slows down the frantic pace of your thoughts. As you approach Ganesha in this meditation, you notice that he's holding a golden plate, and on this plate is a single Modak that looks almost too beautiful to eat. The sweet dumpling is perfectly formed, and it's glowing from within as if it contains its own light source, and you can smell the fragrance of coconut and jaggery and cardamom mixed with something else you can't quite name, but that makes your mouth water and your heart ache with longing. Ganesha looks at you with those wise elephant eyes that see everything you've ever done and everything you've ever hidden and everything you're afraid to admit you want. And instead of judgment, there's only love. He speaks, and his voice sounds like thunder wrapped in velvet, deep enough to vibrate in your chest, but gentle enough to make you want to cry. This Modak contains the sweetness you've been seeking in all the wrong places. It holds the prosperity you've been chasing through exhaustion, the joy you've been postponing until you achieve just one more goal, the peace you've been convinced you don't deserve. But you cannot receive this gift while your hands are full of the counterfeit versions you've been clutching so tightly. Here's where the meditation becomes visceral, where it stops being a pretty visualization and starts being a confrontation with the truth you've been avoiding. Ganesha asks you to look at your hands, and when you do, you see that they're gripping all kinds of things, crumpled bills that represent the scarcity mindset you've been operating from, broken relationships you refuse to release even though they stopped serving you years ago, achievements you're holding on to for validation because you're terrified that without them you're nobody, wounds you've been carrying like badges of honor because suffering is the only currency you've ever known. Your hands are so full of this debris that there's no room to receive the Modak, no space for the sweetness to land, and Ganesha doesn't tell you what to do because he knows that this choice has to be yours. He just waits, patient as mountains, while you decide whether you're ready to drop what you're holding so you can receive what you're being offered. And this decision, this moment of letting go, is where the real transformation happens. Not in some distant future, when you've finally gotten your act together, but right now, in this sacred pause between who you've been and who you're becoming. When you finally open your hands and let everything fall away, when you release your death grip on control and certainty and the familiar pain of struggle, Ganesha places the Modak in your empty palms, and the weight of it surprises you because it's so much lighter than all the garbage you were carrying. You lift this glowing sweet to your lips, and the moment it touches your tongue, an explosion of flavor and sensation floods your entire system. You're not just tasting coconut and jaggery. You're tasting every moment of joy you've ever denied yourself, every opportunity you've ever turned away because you didn't think you were ready, every dream you've ever buried because other people convinced you it wasn't practical. The sweetness spreads from your mouth into your throat, into your chest, into your belly, and it keeps spreading until it reaches the tips of your fingers and the soles of your feet, until your entire body is humming with a frequency you recognize as your birthright. This is what prosperity actually feels like when it's not contaminated by guilt or fear or the need to prove something. It feels like coming home to yourself, like remembering a language you spoke fluently before the world taught you to forget it. But here's the part of the Modak meditation that most people miss, the part that determines whether this becomes a peak experience you remember fondly or a permanent shift in your operating system. After you've tasted the sweetness, after your body is vibrating with the frequency of true abundance, Ganesha asks you a question that will echo in your consciousness for the rest of your life. Now that you know what this feels like, will you accept nothing less? He's not asking if you'll always feel this good, or if you'll never face challenges again, or if you'll maintain some impossible standard of perpetual bliss. He's asking if you'll use this feeling as your compass, as the measuring stick against which you evaluate every choice and opportunity and relationship that comes your way. He's asking if you'll commit to feeding your soul's hunger with actual nourishment, instead of the empty calories of achievement without fulfillment, accumulation without appreciation, success without sweetness. And if you can answer yes to this question, if you can make this commitment with every cell of your being, then the Modak meditation becomes more than just a practice. It becomes the foundation of a new way of being in the world where prosperity isn't something you chase, but something you embody. The title, Remover of Obstacles, gets thrown around so casually when people talk about Ganesha that it's lost all its power, reduced to a spiritual platitude you repeat when you're stuck in traffic or can't find your keys, hoping for some divine intervention to make your day slightly less annoying. But the barriers Ganesha actually removes aren't the inconveniences that temporarily frustrate you. They're the massive, invisible structures that have been blocking your access to divine supply for so long you've forgotten they're even there. These barriers are sneaky because they don't announce themselves with neon signs. They masquerade as personality traits, as family values, as practical wisdom, as just the way things are for people like you. They're the voice that says, "Be realistic" when you dream too big. The feeling of guilt that floods your system when you receive without having earned it through suffering. The unconscious belief that there's a fixed amount of wealth in the world, and taking your share means stealing from someone else. These barriers are so deeply embedded in your psyche that dismantling them feels like dismantling yourself, which is exactly why most people never even attempt it. I'm going to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable, and I need you to sit with the discomfort instead of immediately defending against it. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but you are absolutely a prisoner of your conditioning. The difference matters because victims have no power and prisoners can escape if they're willing to see the bars of their cage and understand how the lock works. Your financial situation right now, whatever it is not primarily the result of the economy or your education or your zip code or bad luck or the unfairness of capitalism. It's the inevitable outcome of the barriers you've internalized and never questioned. Before you rage against this statement or dismiss it as victim blaming, understand that I'm not saying you created your trauma or that you're responsible for the systemic injustices you faced. I'm saying that the meaning you made from those experiences, the beliefs you formed about yourself and your worthiness and your capacity to receive, those are the barriers, and those are within your power to dismantle. Ganesha can't remove obstacles you refuse to acknowledge, can't open doors you insist don't exist, can't guide you through a maze you claim you're not stuck in. Let's get specific about what these barriers actually look like in practical terms, so you can start identifying them in your own life instead of nodding along while secretly thinking this applies to other people, but not to you. Financial barrier number 1. The belief that wanting wealth makes you shallow, greedy, or spiritually unever-loved. This barrier is particularly insidious among people on spiritual paths who've somehow convinced themselves that poverty is holy and prosperity is corrupt, that you can't be both rich and enlightened, that choosing abundance means abandoning your values. This is pure programming, and it's programming that serves the people who want to keep you small and manageable and too busy surviving to question the systems that profit from your scarcity. Ganesha demolishes this barrier by teaching that prosperity is a form of spiritual service, that the more resources you command, the more impact you can make, that living in lack doesn't make you noble. It just makes you ineffective at manifesting your purpose on this planet. When this barrier comes down, you stop apologizing for wanting more and start claiming your right to overflow without justification or explanation. Financial barrier number 2 is the terror of visibility that comes with success, the unconscious fear that if you rise too high, you'll become a target for judgment, criticism, envy, and attack. This barrier keeps brilliant people playing small, dimming their light, hiding their gifts, and sabotaging their own success, right when it's about to break through, because some part of them knows that visibility attracts attention, and attention feels dangerous. Maybe you learned this by watching a parent get torn down for their success, or by being bullied when you excelled in school, or by experiencing the loneliness that can come when you outgrow your peer group and nobody understands the version of you that's emerging. The barrier gets reinforced every time you see successful people get attacked on social media or watch rich people get demonized in the news, and your nervous system makes a very logical calculation. If success equals danger, then staying invisible equals safety. Ganesha shatters this barrier by showing you that the criticism will come regardless, that you're already being judged by people who haven't accomplished a fraction of what you're capable of, and that the only real safety comes from being so aligned with your purpose that external opinions lose their power to derail you. The third major barrier is what I call the scarcity inheritance. And this is the one that makes people weep when they finally see it clearly, because they realize how much of their life has been controlled by beliefs they never consciously chose. You inherited assumptions about what's possible for people with your background, your skin color, your gender, your accent, your body type, your education level, and these assumptions have been running your financial life like software code you never knew was installed. Your grandmother's fear of losing everything, your father's shame about not providing enough, your mother's exhaustion from working 3 jobs, all of that lives in your nervous system as data about how the world works and what you're allowed to have. Ganesha removes this barrier, not by erasing your history, but by severing the energetic cord between their limitations and your possibilities, by showing you that you can honor where you came from without being imprisoned by it, that you can carry the wisdom of your lineage without carrying the wounds. When this barrier dissolves, you'll feel it as a physical lightness, as if gravity itself has loosened its grip. and you'll suddenly have access to opportunities and ideas and connections that were always available but invisible to eyes clouded by inherited scarcity. Here's how to actively work with Ganesha to remove these barriers instead of passively hoping they'll disappear on their own, because hope without action is just wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual language. Start by writing a letter to Ganesha where you name every barrier you can identify, every belief that keeps you locked in limitation, every fear that stops you from claiming your prosperity. Don't censor yourself or try to sound enlightened. Write the raw truth about what you're actually afraid of and what you've been secretly believing about your worthiness to receive. Then, and this is the crucial part, you burn that letter while speaking out loud. Ganesha, I release these barriers to you. I no longer need them for protection. Remove every obstacle between me and the sweetness I was born to taste. The burning isn't symbolic magic. It's a somatic ritual that signals to your nervous system that something is shifting, that you're making a real commitment to change. And that commitment is what activates Ganesha's power to clear your path. After the burning, pay attention to what opportunities show up, what old patterns suddenly become unbearable, what relationships naturally complete because that's Ganesha at work. Removing barriers with the precision of a cosmic surgeon. One of the most painful aspects of the prosperity journey is the gap between when you decide you're ready for abundance and when that abundance actually shows up in your bank account. And this gap is where most people abandon the path because their ego interprets the delay as rejection. You did the visualizations, you cleared the blocks, you raised your frequency, you took the action steps, and still nothing changed. Or worse, things got harder before they got better. And now you're wondering if this whole spiritual approach to wealth is just privileged nonsense that doesn't work for people dealing with real problems in the real world. I understand this frustration intimately because I've been in that gap myself, and I've held space for thousands of people as they navigate the excruciating period between claiming their prosperity and actually experiencing it. But here's what Ganesha teaches about divine timing that will completely shift how you relate to the waiting. The delay is not a denial, the gap is not a punishment, and the universe is not testing your worthiness by making you suffer just a little bit longer. Divine timing operates on a completely different frequency than human impatience, and the moment you understand this difference, you stop torturing yourself with the question, why isn't it happening yet? And start asking the far more productive question, what is trying to emerge through this particular moment? Ganesha knows that every seed has an optimal germination period, that forcing a flower to bloom before its time kills it, that wine needs to ferment in darkness before it becomes something worth drinking. When you demand that your prosperity manifest according to your timeline, you're essentially telling the universe that you know better than the infinite intelligence that orchestrates sunrises and seasons and the migration patterns of birds across continents. And while I absolutely support being proactive and taking aligned action rather than sitting around passively waiting for manna from heaven, there's a difference between productive momentum and frantic forcing, between trusting the process and bypassing the very experiences that are preparing you to handle the abundance you're calling in. Let me paint you a picture of what actually happens in the invisible realm during the gap between your declaration of readiness and the manifestation of your desire, because understanding this will transform impatience into fascination. The moment you make a genuine commitment to prosperity consciousness, the moment you truly decide that you're done living in scarcity and ready to claim your overflow, you send a massive energetic signal into the quantum field. This signal is like an order placed with the universe, and now the universe has to rearrange circumstances, orchestrate synchronicities, line up people and resources and opportunities in ways that honor both your desire and the desires of everyone else who's also putting in their orders. This isn't instant like clicking a button on Amazon, This is infinitely more complex because you're not the only consciousness in the system, and your prosperity might actually depend on someone you haven't met yet, making a decision that aligns their path with yours. During this gap, the universe is working behind the scenes in ways you can't see, shifting molecules and adjusting trajectories, and clearing space in your life for what's coming. And your only job is to maintain your frequency and trust the intelligence of the process. Ganesha teaches the art of dancing with divine timing rather than fighting against it. And this dance has specific steps you can learn. Step 1 is releasing the addiction to knowing how and when your prosperity will arrive, because that need for certainty is actually a form of control that chokes the flow of abundance. The universe has a far more creative imagination than your limited mind can conceive. And when you insist that your wealth must come through a specific channel at a specific time, you close off the 1,000 other pathways that might be trying to deliver your blessings. I've watched people miss extraordinary opportunities because they were so fixated on what they thought abundance should look like that they didn't recognize it when it showed up wearing different clothes. Step 2 is finding evidence of movement, even when nothing seems to be changing. And this requires developing the eyes to see subtle shifts. A random conversation that sparks a new idea, a book that falls off a shelf and contains exactly the message you needed, a phone call from someone you haven't talked to in years, who mentions something that redirects your entire strategy. These aren't coincidences, they're breadcrumbs from the universe showing you that divine timing is active even when the big manifestation hasn't landed yet. Step 3 in the divine timing dance is the most challenging because it requires you to find contentment in the present moment while simultaneously holding desire for something different. And most people think these two states are mutually exclusive. They believe that if they're content with what is, they'll lose their motivation to create what could be, or conversely, that if they desire something more, they can't be grateful for what they already have. Ganesha dissolves this false dichotomy by showing you that true prosperity consciousness holds both states simultaneously. Deep appreciation for the sweetness that's already present, and joyful anticipation of the sweetness that's coming. This is the sweet spot where manifestation accelerates because you're not vibrating from lack while you wait for abundance. You're already in abundance, and what's coming is just more of what you're already experiencing. When you master this step, waiting stops feeling like torture and starts feeling like the delicious pause before a gift is unwrapped, the pregnant moment before a symphony begins, the held breath before a lover's kiss. The final lesson in divine timing is understanding that sometimes the delay is actually protection, and this requires enough spiritual maturity to admit that you don't always know what's best for you in the grand scheme of your soul's evolution. I've had clients who were devastated when a business deal fell through or a job offer was rescinded, only to discover months later that if they had gotten what they wanted when they wanted it, it would have derailed them from something far more aligned and abundant that was waiting around the corner. Ganesha sees the whole chessboard while you're focused on a single move, and sometimes his greatest act of love is removing obstacles you didn't know were obstacles by not giving you what you think you want, so he can give you what you actually need. This doesn't mean you should passive and resigned, accepting whatever scraps life throws your way while telling yourself it must be divine timing. It means you stay actively engaged in creating your prosperity while remaining flexible about the form it takes and the timeline on which it arrives. When you can dance this dance with grace, when you can be both committed and surrendered, decisive and flexible, ambitious and trusting, you become unstoppable, and the sweetness you've been seeking rushes toward you like water finally released from behind a dam. There's a reason every ancient tradition worth its weight in wisdom includes some form of sacred space where the physical and spiritual worlds intersect, where intention meets matter, where your small human self can commune with forces far greater than your individual consciousness. Your prosperity altar isn't decorative spirituality or superstitious ritual. It's a technology for focusing your attention, anchoring your intention, and creating a physical representation of the abundance you're calling into your life. Most people underestimate the power of sacred space because they've been conditioned to believe that real change only happens through grinding effort and strategic action, that lighting a candle or placing offerings before a deity is just feel-good nonsense that doesn't actually move the needle on your bank balance. But these same people will spend thousands of dollars on courses and coaching and business strategies while ignoring the energetic foundation that determines whether any of those tactical moves will actually bear fruit. And then they wonder why they keep hitting the same ceiling no matter how hard they work. Creating a prosperity altar dedicated to Ganesha is one of the most practical things you can do to shift your relationship with abundance. And I'm going to walk you through the process step by step so you can implement this immediately instead of adding it to the ever-growing list of things you'll do someday when you have more time or more money or more clarity. First, identify a space in your home that you can dedicate to this purpose. And it doesn't need to be an entire room or even a large table. It can be a corner of your dresser, a shelf, a windowsill, anywhere that you can keep consistently clear and that you'll see regularly throughout your day. The key is that this space becomes holy through your intention rather than through its size or aesthetic perfection. And the act of clearing this space, of removing the clutter and chaos and random junk that accumulates in our living environments, is already a powerful statement to your subconscious mind that you're serious about creating room for prosperity to land. Once you have your space, the central element of your altar should be an image or statue of Ganesha. And I don't care if you order something online or print out a picture or create your own representation. What matters is that when you look at it, you feel a connection, a recognition, a sense of, yes, this is the energy I want to align with. D. Place this representation of Ganesha in the center of your altar. And as you do, speak your intention out loud. This altar is a portal for divine abundance to flow into my life. Every time I come to this space, I am remembering my connection to infinite supply and removing the barriers between me and the sweetness I deserve. And saying this out loud isn't just symbolic. It's instructing your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters what information gets your attention, to start prioritizing evidence of prosperity and opportunities for overflow. Around Ganesha, you'll create a constellation of offerings and symbols that represent the specific forms of abundance you're calling in, and this is where the altar becomes deeply personal rather than generic. The traditional offerings to Ganesha include modaks or other sweets, fresh flowers, incense, and a small lamp or candle. And each of these elements carries specific energetic significance that amplifies your prosperity work. The sweets represent the sweetness you're inviting into your life, the tangible pleasure of living in abundance rather than just surviving in scarcity. Every time you place a sweet on your altar, you're training your nervous system to expect sweetness, to become familiar with receiving without having to earn it through suffering. Fresh flowers represent beauty, impermanence, and the natural cycles of growth and renewal. They remind you that prosperity flows in seasons, that you don't need to hoard or cling because the garden of abundance is always producing more blooms. The incense carries your prayers and intentions into the invisible realm, the smoke rising as a physical representation of your desires ascending toward divine consciousness. And the flame of the lamp or candle represents the light of awareness that dissolves the darkness of ignorance, the illumination that allows you to see opportunities and pathways that were always there but invisible to eyes trained to see only lack. Beyond these traditional offerings, I want you to add elements that speak specifically to your vision of prosperity. Objects that represent what abundance looks like in your particular life, rather than some generic fantasy of wealth. If prosperity for you means financial freedom to travel, place a small globe or pictures of destinations on your altar. If it means having resources to support causes you care about, include symbols or images of that work. If it means creating generational wealth for your family, add photographs of the people whose lives you want to transform. The altar becomes a three-dimensional vision board, infused with spiritual power. And every time you interact with it, every time you light the candle or refresh the flowers or sit in front of it with your morning coffee, you're reinforcing the neural pathways that make prosperity consciousness your default operating system, rather than a state you have to work hard to access. The maintenance of your altar is just as important as its creation. And this is where most people fall off, because they set it up with great enthusiasm and then let it gather dust while they get distracted by the demands of daily life. Your altar is a living practice, not a one-time project, and the ritual of tending it becomes a daily recommitment to your prosperity consciousness. I recommend spending at least 5 minutes at your altar every morning before you check your phone or email or get swept into the chaos of your to-do list. And during these 5 minutes, your only job is to be present with Ganesha's energy and to speak your gratitude and your intentions out loud. Thank him for the obstacles he's already removed, for the abundance that's already flowing, for the barriers he's currently dismantling that you can't even see yet. Then state clearly what you're calling in. I am ready to receive X amount of divine supply through channels known and unknown. I am open to opportunities that exceed my current imagination. I trust that the sweetness I desire is already making its way toward me. This daily practice might feel awkward or forced at first, but consistency is what transforms ritual into relationship. And when you've built a genuine relationship with the energy of prosperity through your altar work, you'll find that synchronicities multiply and resources appear from the most unexpected places. Elephants never forget. And this isn't just a cute fact from a nature documentary. It's a teaching about the power of remembering who you are beneath all the conditioning, all the trauma, all the stories that have convinced you that you're small and powerless and unworthy of the overflow you crave. Ganesha carries the elephant head as a reminder that your true nature, your sovereign self, has never forgotten its connection to infinite abundance, even though your human personality has been hypnotized by scarcity programming for so long that you think limitation is just reality rather than a choice you keep making unconsciously. There's a part of you that remembers what it felt like before the world taught you to doubt yourself, before you learned that resources are scarce and competition is brutal and only the lucky or the ruthless get to win. That part of you still exists, buried beneath layers of protection and adaptation and survival strategies. And Ganesha's entire purpose is to help you excavate that sovereign self and bring it back online as your primary operating system. The greatest obstacle to prosperity isn't lack of opportunity or insufficient skill or bad timing. It's amnesia. The forgetting of your fundamental nature as a divine being with unlimited creative power and an unbreakable connection to source energy. You've forgotten that you're not a beggar pleading with an indifferent universe for scraps. You're royalty who temporarily forgot you have a throne. And now you're wandering around the kingdom asking permission to exist in the castle you actually own. This forgetting didn't happen overnight, and it won't be undone with a single meditation or affirmation, but every moment you spend consciously remembering, every choice you make from sovereignty rather than scarcity, every time you catch yourself operating from the belief that you're powerless and choose a different narrative, you're strengthening the neural pathways that support your return to truth. Ganesha doesn't give you sovereignty. He removes the obstacles that are blocking your memory of the sovereignty you've always had. Let's get visceral about what sovereignty actually feels like in your body, so you can start recognizing when you're operating from that frequency versus when you've slipped back into the amnesia of lack. Sovereignty feels like a deep exhale that releases all the tension you've been carrying, like your spine lengthening and your shoulders dropping and your jaw unclenching as you remember that you don't have to defend yourself against a hostile universe. It feels like making decisions from curiosity and desire rather than from fear and obligation, like choosing what you want instead of what you think you should want or what other people expect from you. It feels like the difference between asking, "Can I afford this?" from a place of scarcity versus asking, "Is this aligned with my vision?" from a place of abundance. When you're in sovereignty, you don't need external validation to know you made the right choice because you trust yourself completely. You don't need to control every outcome because you know that you're resourceful enough to handle whatever emerges. You don't need to prove your worth through achievement because you know your value is inherent rather than earned. The practice of remembering your sovereign nature starts with catching yourself in the moments when you give your power away. And this happens far more often than you probably realize. You give your power away every time you say yes when you mean no because you're afraid of disappointing someone or being rejected. You give it away when you dim your light to make insecure people comfortable, when you downplay your success to avoid triggering envy, when you apologize for taking up space or asking for what you need. You give it away when you let other people's opinions about what's possible become more real to you than your own inner knowing. When you abandon your dreams because someone with no vision told you to be realistic. When you shrink your desires to fit what you think you're allowed to want based on your gender or background or bank balance. Ganesha's elephant memory holds the truth of who you are even when you forget, and he's always ready to reflect that truth back to you the moment you're willing to remember, the moment you're brave enough to reclaim the power you've been giving away in 1,000 small surrenders that seemed insignificant at the time, but have added up to a life that feels smaller than the one you came here to live. Here's a practice that will activate your sovereign nature so powerfully that you'll feel the shift happening in real time, and all it requires is your willingness to be uncomfortable for a few minutes while you tell the truth. Set a timer for 5 minutes, and during those 5 minutes, write a letter to yourself from the perspective of your fully sovereign self. The version of you who never forgot their divine nature, who never doubted their worthiness, who never believed the lie that prosperity is scarce. Let that sovereign self speak directly to the part of you that's still struggling, still scared, still wondering if abundance is really possible for someone like you. Your sovereign self might say something like, "I see you working so hard to prove you deserve to exist, and I want you to know that your worthiness was never in question. I see you trying to earn love and approval and financial security through endless achievement, and I want you to understand that you already have everything you're seeking. You've just forgotten how to access it. I am you without the amnesia, and I'm here to remind you that scarcity is a spell you can break, that limitation is a story you can rewrite, that the sweetness you're craving is already flowing toward you the moment you stop blocking it with your disbelief." When the timer goes off, read what you wrote out loud and notice what happens in your body as you hear these words of truth spoken in your own voice. The elephant's memory is perfect and eternal. And when you align with Ganesha's energy, you gain access to that same quality of remembering, the ability to recall your sovereign nature no matter how deep the amnesia gets or how convincing the illusion of limitation becomes. This doesn't mean you'll never have moments of doubt or fear or temporary forgetting. It means you'll have a practice for finding your way back to truth, a rope you can grab when you're drowning in scarcity consciousness, a lighthouse that guides you home when you've lost your way in the fog of collective programming. Every time you come to your altar, every time you invoke Ganesha's presence, every time you choose the sweet path over the struggle path, you're exercising your memory muscle. You're reinforcing the neural networks that support sovereignty. You're building the kind of unshakable inner authority that no external circumstance can topple. And when you live from that place of remembered sovereignty, when you make choices and build businesses and form relationships from the knowing that you are divine abundance incarnate, the universe has no choice but to reflect that truth back to you in the form of resources and opportunities and synchronicities that match your frequency. Words are not neutral, and the sounds you make with your mouth when you speak or chant or pray are literally shaping your reality at a molecular level, because everything is vibration, and different frequencies create different outcomes in the quantum field. This isn't mystical nonsense or New Age wishful thinking. This is physics, neuroscience, and ancient wisdom, all pointing to the same truth from different angles. When you speak a mantra with intention and repetition and emotional resonance, you're doing several things simultaneously. You're rewiring your neural pathways to support new beliefs. You're broadcasting a specific frequency into the field that attracts matching circumstances, and you're activating parts of your consciousness that remain dormant when you're just thinking thoughts without giving them sound. The sweet success mantra I'm about to give you is designed specifically to align you with Ganesha's energy and to remove the final obstacles between you and the prosperity that's ready to flood your life. And if you use it consistently with presence, rather than just going through the motions, you will experience shifts that feel like magic, but are actually the natural result of matching your vibration to the frequency of abundance. Before I give you the mantra, you need to understand the mechanics of why mantras work, so that your rational mind doesn't sabotage the practice by dismissing it as superstition. When you repeat a phrase over and over, especially in Sanskrit or another sacred language that carries thousands of years of devotional energy, you're essentially hacking your nervous system's default programming. Your brain operates on pattern recognition, and whatever patterns you feed, it most consistently become your autopilot, your unconscious baseline, the lens through which you interpret every experience. If you've been unconsciously repeating patterns of scarcity, if your internal dialogue sounds like, "I can't afford that," and "money is so hard to make," and "I never have enough," then you've trained your reticular activating system to filter reality for evidence that supports those beliefs, while ignoring or minimizing evidence to the contrary. A mantra interrupts that pattern by giving your mind something else to focus on, something that carries a completely different frequency. And when you repeat this new pattern with enough consistency, it overwrites the old programming the same way recording over a cassette tape replaces whatever was there before. The Sweet Success Mantra combines Ganesha's traditional Bij mantra with English affirmations that speak directly to your prosperity consciousness, creating a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern manifestation technology. Here's the full mantra, and I want you to write it down, speak it out loud right now as you read it, and commit to using it for the next 40 days without skipping a single day, because consistency is what transforms practice into permanent change. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. I am a magnet for divine abundance. All obstacles dissolve in the presence of my sovereign power. Sweetness flows to me effortlessly from known and unknown sources. I receive with joy. I prosper with grace. I overflow with gratitude. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. The Sanskrit portion, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, is the sonic key that unlocks Ganesha's energy, and each syllable carries specific vibrational significance. Om is the primordial sound, the vibration from which all creation emerges. Gam is Ganesha's seed sound, his energetic signature compressed into a single syllable. Ganapataye means to the remover of obstacles, and Namaha means I bow, or I honor. When you chant these words, you're not asking permission or begging for help. You're declaring your alignment with the force that removes barriers. You're tuning your frequency to match the vibration of obstacle-free prosperity. The English affirmations that follow the Sanskrit create a specific energetic program that addresses the three main blocks to abundance that most people carry. I am a magnet for divine abundance rewrites the belief that you have to chase or force or manipulate prosperity into your life. Instead, you become the attractive force, and abundance comes to you the way iron filings arrange themselves around a magnet. All obstacles dissolve in the presence of my sovereign power, activates your remembering that you're not powerless against the barriers you face. You carry within you the same force that Ganesha represents. And when you claim that power, obstacles don't just move aside, they actually dissolve as if they were never solid to begin with. Sweetness flows to me effortlessly from known and unknown sources, opens you up to receiving through channels you haven't even imagined yet, preventing you from limiting your prosperity to the narrow pathways your logical mind can conceive. I receive with joy, I prosper with grace, I overflow with gratitude, establishes the emotional tone of your abundance, ensuring that when prosperity arrives, you don't sabotage it with guilt or unworthiness or the belief that you have to suffer to keep it. Now let's talk about how to actually practice this mantra in a way that maximizes its transformative power, because just reading it once or saying it half-heartedly while you're scrolling through your phone isn't going to cut it. I want you to create a ritual around this mantra that signals to your entire being that something sacred is happening, that you're stepping out of ordinary consciousness and into a space where transformation is possible. Here's the protocol. Find a time each day when you can be undisturbed for at least 10 minutes, and this ideally should be the same time every day, because consistency trains your nervous system to drop into the altered state more quickly. Sit in front of your Ganesha altar if you've created one, or simply sit in a comfortable position with your spine straight so energy can flow freely through your body. Take 3 deep breaths to center yourself, and on the third exhale, place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, physically connecting with the places in your body where worthiness and abundance need to be anchored. Begin chanting the mantra out loud. And I emphasize out loud because speaking activates different neural pathways than thinking, and the vibration of your own voice creates a feedback loop that amplifies the effect. Chant it slowly at first, feeling each word in your mouth, letting the Sanskrit syllables roll around on your tongue, infusing the English affirmations with genuine emotion rather than robotic repetition. After you've chanted it slowly a few times, you can increase the pace, building momentum and intensity until you feel the energy rising in your body, until you can feel your cells vibrating with a different frequency than the one you walked into the practice with. The goal is to complete at least 108 repetitions, which is a sacred number in Vedic tradition because it represents spiritual completion. But if that feels overwhelming when you're starting out, commit to at least 27 repetitions and build from there. You can use mala beads to count, or you can set a timer and chant for a specific duration. But what matters most is that you stay present with the practice rather than letting your mind wander to your to-do list or yesterday's drama. As you practice this mantra over the 40-day period, pay attention to what starts shifting in your external reality. But even more importantly, notice what shifts internally in how you feel about yourself, how you move through the world, how you respond to opportunities and challenges. You might find that you suddenly have ideas you've never had before, that you make decisions with a clarity and confidence that used to elude you, that you attract people and circumstances that support your prosperity in ways that feel almost miraculous. This isn't the mantra doing something to you. This is the mantra revealing what was always possible once you removed the interference of scarcity consciousness. And when you complete the 40 days, when you've rewired your nervous system through consistent practice, you'll have access to a tool that you can return to anytime you feel yourself slipping back into old patterns, anytime you need to remember that sweetness is your birthright, and obstacles are temporary illusions that dissolve in the presence of your sovereign power. Everything I've shared with you up until this point has been building toward a single truth that will either liberate you completely or make absolutely no sense, depending on whether you're ready to hear it. Prosperity isn't a destination you arrive at after you've checked all the boxes and done all the practices and removed all the obstacles. Prosperity is who you become when you stop postponing joy and start embodying it right now, in this moment, with whatever resources you currently have. The sweetness you've been seeking doesn't live in some future version of your life where your bank account has more zeros and your circumstances have finally aligned perfectly. It lives in your capacity to experience joy in the present moment, regardless of whether external conditions match your preferences or. This isn't about bypassing your legitimate desires for more resources or settling for less than you deserve or pretending to be happy when you're actually struggling. This is about understanding that the frequency of joy is what magnetizes abundance. And if you can't access joy until you have abundance, you're stuck in a paradox that guarantees you'll stay exactly where you are. Ganesha is always depicted with a gentle smile. And that smile isn't the result of having no problems or obstacles to remove. It's the expression of a consciousness that has transcended the belief that external circumstances determine internal state. He's joyful because he knows who he is, because he remembers his divine nature, because he's not waiting for anything outside himself to give him permission to experience sweetness. When you learn to embody this same quality of unconditional joy, when you make happiness a practice rather than a prize you receive for good behavior, everything about your relationship with prosperity transforms from exhausting hustle to magnetic flow. You stop chasing opportunities because opportunities start finding you. You stop trying to force deals to close because the right partnerships form naturally around your elevated frequency. You stop worrying about competition because you understand that your unique joy creates a resonance that attracts exactly what's meant for you while repelling what isn't. Let me be crystal clear about what I mean by embodying joy, because this concept gets twisted into toxic positivity that invalidates genuine pain and bypasses necessary healing. Embodying joy doesn't mean you're happy all the time, or that you never feel sadness, anger, fear, or grief. It means you don't abandon yourself when difficult emotions arise. You don't collapse into victimhood when challenges appear, and you don't make your worthiness conditional on how well things are going at any given moment. It means you can hold both the truth that you're working toward more abundance and the truth that you're already blessed beyond measure. It means you can desire transformation while simultaneously accepting what is. It means you can feel disappointed when something doesn't work out and still find reasons to smile before the day is over. This is emotional maturity masquerading as spiritual practice, and it's the foundation upon which sustainable prosperity is built, because wealth that arrives before you've developed this capacity will either destroy you or abandon you as quickly as it came. The practice of living as the embodiment of joy starts with a radical commitment to pleasure, and I'm not talking about hedonistic excess or irresponsible escapism. I'm talking about consciously choosing experiences that feel good in your body and feed your soul, even when your practical mind is screaming that you don't have time for pleasure, because there's too much work to do and too many problems to solve. You practice embodied joy by taking 5 minutes in the morning to drink your coffee without multitasking, actually tasting it, feeling the warmth of the cup in your hands, noticing the aroma and the way the caffeine starts to wake up your system. You practice it by dancing in your kitchen while you cook dinner, by taking the long way home because the sunset is beautiful, by buying yourself flowers even though they're not on sale and nobody will see them but you. These aren't indulgences. These are investments in your vibrational frequency, and every moment you spend in genuine pleasure is reprogramming your nervous system to expect sweetness, to recognize that life can feel good, to remember that joy is available right now and not just in some distant future when all your goals have been achieved. Here's a practice that will anchor this embodiment work into your daily life in a way that creates measurable results. Every evening before you go to sleep, write down 3 moments from your day when you experienced sweetness, when you felt even a flicker of joy or pleasure or gratitude or delight. These don't have to be huge moments. In fact, the practice becomes more powerful when you learn to notice the small sweetnesses that your mind usually dismisses as insignificant. Maybe it was the way your child laughed, or a compliment from a stranger, or the feeling of clean sheets against your skin, or a moment of creative inspiration, or the taste of a perfectly ripe peach. Write these down every single night for 40 days. And what you're doing is training your brain to actively scan your experience for evidence of sweetness, instead of defaulting to the negativity bias that kept your ancestors alive by constantly scanning for threats, but now just keeps you trapped in stress and scarcity. After 40 days of this practice, you'll notice that your entire perception of your life has shifted, that you're swimming in abundance you never saw before. And that shift in perception changes what you attract, because you can only receive what you're vibrationally aligned with. The final teaching, the one that integrates everything we've explored together in this journey through Ganesha's sweet success prayer, is this: you are not separate from the abundance you seek, and the obstacles you face are not external enemies to defeat, but internal patterns to dissolve. Every barrier between you and prosperity is actually an invitation to remember who you are, to reclaim your sovereign nature, to choose the sweet path over the struggle path, to embody joy instead of postponing it. Ganesha doesn't remove obstacles by making your life easier. He removes them by making you stronger, wiser, more aligned with your divine nature, more capable of handling the overflow that's coming. And when you finally understand that the sweetness you've been seeking has always been inside you, waiting for you to stop looking outside yourself for validation and permission and proof that you deserve it, when you claim that sweetness is your birthright and start living from that frequency regardless of what your bank account says or what your circumstances look like, that's when the gates swing open. That's when the golden rain begins to fall. That's when you realize you were never a beggar pleading with an indifferent universe, but royalty who temporarily forgot you owned the kingdom.